And thank you so much for joining us here tonight, Alison. It is a real pleasure to have you here with us at the KCL campus. Let's dig right in. So in terms of the agenda today, we'll have a 25-minute discussion on Alison's career journey, explore some themes on leadership and confidence, and then we'll also have time for audience Q&A, where we highly encourage all of you to ask questions and make the most of this opportunity. So we're so excited to have you here, and we have so much to learn from you. Let's jump right in. Can you tell us about your journey from the beginning? How did it all start when you graduated from uni, and now you've got such an amazing senior leader role? What have you learned, and how did your career journey start?
Oh, well, thank you very much, and thank you so much for inviting me here this evening. It's lovely to be here with you. So, career journey. So, I finished at Sheffield University, that's where I studied, and I went onto a management scheme, a graduate management scheme at United Utilities. I had no clue what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be, but I knew that I enjoyed management. So I chose that particular scheme because it didn't pigeonhole me into any one particular role. I had the opportunity to work across a number of departments, to see many different aspects of business, and therefore could start to choose where I wanted to go. I learned one of life's big lessons actually there, because I had a mentor. He was the operations director of United Utilities. I was working for him on secondment, one of my secondments, and he came to me one day and said, look, he said, it's great news. Your next job is going to be my job. And I'm thinking, great, I'm 25 years old, amazing. Two problems with that. One, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, but secondly, actually I would encourage you to go and get some different experience in the world, so I encourage you to go into business consulting. So I took that advice, I moved to London, and I got a job at the time with Accenture. I moved into Accenture, I spent 5 years in Accenture where I made partner. And then on the back of that, I was headhunted by EY to set up the now very flourishing, very large consulting business. So I was one of I think I was the fourth partner who was recruited directly as a partner into EY to set up the business there. Subsequently, my moves have all been within EY. I've had global roles. I was the Vice Chair of Industry, where I oversaw our 17 industries globally, everything from banking, through private equity, through consumer products, through power, utilities, oil, gas, etc. So 17 industries globally. I was a member of our global executive, where I oversaw our largest accounts. There was 11 billion of revenue in those accounts, so I ran those accounts for a few years. And then our now chairman, who I'm still very friendly with, asked me to come back into the UK and Ireland business, where I lead our business. I'm the chief executive here in the UK and Ireland, and my job really was to do a turnaround and to expedite the growth here in the UK, which is what I've been doing for the last few years. So it's been a really fantastic journey. In between all that, I'm a member of the Council of the University of Sheffield. I give back a lot into particularly Sheffield, because Sheffield was the place where I came from. And so, I do lots of elements outside work, and I'm a big believer in diversity, inclusion, and really making sure that our firm and my voice as a leader really does carry, change in the way in which we, stand for inclusion and for diversity.
Thank you for sharing that. That's an amazing list of accomplishments, and I'm sure there'll be so many more to come, which we'd love to watch as an audience as well. But just going back to that, did you always have a plan? And did you always have this in mind, that you want to be a senior leader one day, or you want to be a chief executive one day?
Well, it's funny you should say that. I read a book. It's probably a very old book. Well, it's a very old book now, unfortunately, by a lady called Nicola Horrocks. And now I stand on the shoulders of women who came before me. I stand on the shoulders of the suffragettes. I stand on the shoulders of the women who fought for equal financing for women back in the 70s, when women couldn't get finance unless it was signed off by their husband or their father. I stand on the shoulders of the women in the 1980s who really pushed forward and tried to break through that glass ceiling of career. And one of those, but at that time, and in the 1980s, when I was coming through the sort of schooling system, education system, the women didn't really have a choice. You either chose career or you chose being a man, and you really did not have a choice either, to do both. I read a book by a lady called Nicola Hoyt, who was at the time a chief executive in the city. She was in investment banking, and she had 6 children, which was just incredible, you know, to have 6 children in the 1980s. And, you know, so we, and I thought, you know what, actually, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can be a senior leader, you know, a chief executive, I can do it, and I can also be a man. So my great belief is that, yes, I always felt that I wanted to be, you know, in management and a leader. And she never met me, and I've never met her, and she doesn't know I exist. But what I do know is that she gave me the role model to say that I can do this, that I can go there, I can be something beyond perhaps the horizon that I had at that point as a teenager.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story about, you know, how literature and books as well really helped you, and, you know, you never know where you can find a role model.
The role models come from everywhere, but it is important to have role models. It is important to see somebody that, you know, kind of looks and feels like you do, which is why I think inclusion and diversity in the workforce is super important, because if all you can see are people who don't look like you and don't think like you, then it's going to be pretty impossible to imagine yourself in those positions.
Yeah, no, 100% I agree. And just moving forward from that idea of diversity and inclusion, you know, we recently celebrated National Women's Day, where we discussed the theme of embracing equity. And how do you believe that businesses, or we can create a future where growth is more inclusive, not just for women, but for everyone, and we're embracing our differences in equity?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a really fascinating journey. When I joined EY, 11% of the partners were female. And today, I was really proud last year that for the first time in history, 50% of our partner promotes were women. So we've come a long way over that period, and, you know, I feel like it's been a fantastic journey, and we've been on a journey with with ethnic minorities. We're not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, continue on that journey. And then, you know, all other forms of, groups in society. And what I'm believing now is that targets are important. Let's not underestimate, you know, targets do make a difference, because it forces the spotlight on what you are achieving or not achieving, as the case may be. And you can track that journey and that progress. But I do believe now we're in a place where inclusion and psychological safety and belonging in the workforce will make the difference to that inclusive growth and the ability for everybody to participate. So inclusion and the ability for everybody to feel like they can be themselves, whatever their background, whoever they are, they really can be themselves, is now, I think, I don't want to lose the targets because it does force the conversation, but culturally, is where I'm absolutely at, which is how do you create a safe environment for everybody to be themselves, and that every person can thrive in that environment. And that's the, you know, I'm not saying we get it perfectly right at EY, we don't always get it right, but we are definitely striving to create that sort of safe place for everybody to be, you know, the person that they are and can be.
Yeah, no, I agree. And with more and more businesses, you know, putting those targets out there, I think it definitely sets a standard. Like 50% of female promotes is definitely a standard for businesses to look up to now and follow further. And just moving away from that into, you know, your professional day-to-day life. What does your average day-to-day life look like? Because everyone says every single day is different, but could you give us some insight into that?
Oh, well, every day is different. I've had the best day today. Can I just say I've had a really good day today? So today's day, which I wouldn't say it was completely usual, but there's a chap called Jack Parsons, I don't know if any of you know, he leads the youth group, he advises the government, and he really promotes socio-economic progression. So Jack shadowed me this morning, it was a fascinating experience. I had an interview with The Wired magazine, which is a technology magazine. So they interviewed me about AI, the future of AI, and bias within AI, and how you sort of counteract the bias within AI. I had that interview. I did a video using our studio, the green room as we call it. It was a green screen with the auto cue, and I did a talk to our neurodiversity community, because I'm a very, very big passionate, fan and encouragement of neurodiversity in the workplace. So I did that, and then I met with our sustainability eco-innovators, where I spent time talking to them about what they think the future should look like from a sustainability, what EY needed to do more of. And then what did I do after that? And then I had a number of meetings with clients this afternoon, and then I'm here. So that's been a really cool day, actually, for a Monday. I did get up this morning thinking, all right, I've got to be on my A game today. But most days, I mean, is that a typical day? Not far from it. Lots of variety, lots of things and different topics that you sort of have to immerse yourself in and give time to. But I would say it starts with clients and people. So in our business, clients are super critical. Our people are really important. So it starts there. So if my day is not including in some way, shape or form something to do with our clients and our people, that's not a great day. Setting business strategy, leading the business, corralling my team to do all the strategic sorts of things that we need to do. That's really important. Last week I was with my leadership team in Coventry, making sure that we were sort of visible outside of London and making sure that we got the reach outside of London. And then, you know, another really important part of my day are my children. I've got a almost 15-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old little boy. And so, you know, a bedtime story in Harry Potter is also a really important part of my day. So, you know, if my elements include most of those in every single day, then I think, yeah, I've got it kind of right.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing description, and thank you for being so genuine about everything that goes on in your day, because a lot of times we hear, yeah, there's a bunch of tasks, but I think this is what really gives us all an insight on what we can expect one day if we were to, you know, get to where you are. And just moving forward into your personal life, you know, a lot of women are worried that when they go into the workplace, they might face some obstacles or they might face some discrimination. I was wondering if you've ever faced any challenges as a woman, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I'm a great believer in, you know, you should be the change you want to be in the world. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I still believe that. So have I come up against challenges? Yes. Have I allowed those challenges to define me? No. And that's really important. So, you know, some of the challenges I came up against, I was the first female, I use that word very deliberately, female partner in EY in the UK to have a baby. There was no maternity policy because nobody had had a baby before. Well, men clearly, you know, at that time men were not having babies. I was the first female to have a baby, and therefore there was no maternity policy. So I was like, well, what do I do? So I'll talk to the CEO's secretary. I'm like, why would I talk to somebody's secretary about like maternity leave? But anyway, now our maternity policy is absolutely out there as the best, I think, maternity policy that we have for both partners and non-partners. Why? Because I really pushed to make that change I wanted to see. You know, biases, you know, so I think there is an unconscious bias in all sorts of scenarios, but I do also believe that as women, you know, we have a duty, I keep coming back to it, I've stood on the shoulders of really great women who push for change, you know, I've hopefully contributed in some small way to change, both in EY and beyond, and I think we all can play our part in continuing to evolve the change that we want to see and be in the world. So yeah, there are obstacles, and I wouldn't be authentic if I said, oh no, it'd all be just like a bed of roses and we'd all sail through. But I also believe that one should not allow those to define you and define what you want to see and be.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. And, you know, progress can only be made, I think, like you said, if we stand up for that change and stand up for our rights. So hopefully that's something we can all take into account from this chat today. I also want to dig deeper into, you know, leadership and confidence. So how can women like us, how can we be more confident about ourselves? And how can we portray that when we graduate, for example, or when we have internship roles or work experiences?
Well, I have to say, I mean, I'm looking around this room, what an amazing group of women, you know, who I honestly look at and think, wow, what a future we have got if you're in charge of companies, quite frankly. I mean, so, you know, I would say, and I guess, you know, if I was speaking to my younger self, I would say, believe in yourself. Do not be defined by societal expectations of you. And, you know, look up around you and see others and engage in conversations with others and be the people you want, you know, look at who you want to be and don't allow anybody to squash your ambition. And whatever that ambition may be, you know, there's all sorts of different directions that you're at the start of this journey. Oh my goodness, you know, you can go and be whoever you want to be, and you really should not allow anybody to be defining that on your behalf. And I think, you know, sometimes that might not be easy. Sometimes you may have to rail against the societal expectations, or, you know, rail against, you know, the sort of barriers that may be there, obvious or not. But nevertheless, I honestly do believe that you should go for absolutely everything and believe in yourself.
Thank you. That's very, very encouraging and inspiring to hear. And, you know, during your career, you held a range of leadership roles. Could you touch upon the skills that really enabled you to become that leader, and what do you think are the important skills that companies are looking for when they hire graduates?
So, I mean, skills. I mean, you know, you will have your technical skills that you have been learning through your, you know, courses here, and you will go on perhaps to do further education and skills. So technical skills are good and they're important, but what I find are really important skills is the ability to build relationships. That's a really important skill, the ability to connect with people, the ability to challenge status quo and not just, you know, accept the norm. You know, so I think the willingness to take some degree of risk. You know, it would be really easy to sit and think, oh well, I shouldn't do that because. But actually, that risk taking, the ambition, the boldness, the relationships are all really important attributes that, you know, can make you successful in your chosen career, your chosen pathway. And, you know, the technical skills are important, but technical skills can always be learned. The other thing I would say, and I say this to myself as a leader, is if you're not learning continuously, if you're not developing yourself, if you're not being thoughtful about, you know, further enhancing who you are, then you will stall. You just will stall in life. So I think Jack Parsons this morning asked me a question. He said, have you engaged in any curious conversations recently? And I was like, that's a really good question, because the answer is I normally do really look for curious conversations and really engage in something that's a bit different. And honestly, and I'm sure many of you have read in the press, you know, our firm's going through a very major transition and transformation of its own, and, you know, the business world is pretty rocky at the minute. I'm thinking, I have not made the time in the last 6 months for those curious conversations. I really need to check myself and get back on it. So I would say that constant curiosity and constant learning is really, really important as a skill. As graduates, what we look for in you is not particularly the technical skill. I mean, there's an element of you, you know, but you're all smart, you're all incredible people, but it is some of those broader attributes, the creativity, the innovation, the relationship skills, the thinking differently, the boldness, the ambition. Those are the things that I and our business is certainly looking for, that differentiates beyond the technical skill.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent package of skills that you've shared, and, you know, that really gives us a takeaway that it's really about being that all-rounder in terms of the skills that you're possessing, in terms of ambition, passion, curiosity, boldness, all of that. And I think there's so much to take away from that advice. Would you say, as a leader, you know, you've faced lots of challenges, I'm assuming. Could you touch upon any personal story that, how did you overcome those challenges as a leader?
Well, I think there's, you know, two forms of challenges. I mean, you know, if I look back, I took this role in 2020, and I was announced in my role 5 days before lockdown happened and COVID hit. And so, you know, I feel like I've been on a roller coaster ever since then. You know, so we had COVID, and my first thought was, oh my goodness, I've got 21,000 people here in the UK and Ireland. I've got to keep them safe. And I'm really worried right now that the business is going to collapse because we can't talk to anybody. You know, our business is clients, it's human interaction, and we're all locked in our bedrooms. So, you know, that was a major point of like, wow, you know, okay, first job, keep everybody safe and make sure that the business doesn't collapse under the weight of this pandemic. The second, role then, we came out of that, and it was a massive roller coaster in terms of, getting the business right side, but the growth was just exponential. The economy just absolutely went, crazy. So trying to really keep the people experience at the forefront of all of this, and making sure that we were doing everything we possibly could to make sure that our people were not completely overworked and overwhelmed by just the sheer demand that was coming into the business, and dealing with that demand. It sounds like a really great problem to have, and in many ways it was a great problem to have, but nevertheless it was equally quite tough to sort of deal with that when your attrition is at 25%, because people were just going off all over the place, and you're trying to meet mega demand from clients. And then we had the Ukraine war, which was horrific and is horrific, and then you end up in the market crashing, and then of course we then had the political turmoil of the summer, which really just trashed the economy. So then I'm into a business which is now trying to deal with a really rocky ride at the moment, and holding the North Star true, which is how do I retain people and make sure I'm retaining people, because the market will come back, and it's my duty of care to people to keep that employment and keep them in our business. So it's been a phenomenal set of challenges. I think I look back over the last 3 years and think I've probably lived through more in those 3 years than most leaders lived through in 20 years with those shocks. And of course in this last week we've had the banking shock, and the collapse of the SVB and now Credit Suisse being bought out. So today I'm looking at it going, I wonder what that's going to mean for my business and where we're going. So that as a leader I've had a lot over the last few years. But then on a personal level, some challenges. I think the biggest one for me was being offered the vice chair of industry. So if you recall, I said I ran our 17 industries. And I was offered that role when my son was 7 months old. And it was a global role, and it meant I was going to be travelling an awful lot. And it was one of those moments in time where I thought, okay, what do I do now? He was very much long for a little boy, and I was like, okay, this is a moment in my career, but I've got a 7-month-old and my daughter at the time was 5. So you're thinking, how on earth am I going to manage, that scenario? And I was reading a book by Sheryl Sandberg, if you have heard of her or know her, and she wrote a book called Lean In, which my husband actually had encouraged me to read it. He'd been reading it. He said, you really must read this. So I read it. But actually, I don't know if I hadn't been reading the book at that time, whether I would have taken the role. I was like, no, this is my moment to lean in to my career, and my support network around me and the family really has allowed me to sort of take that role and then take my career to the next step. And I think that was a moment which was really, really tough. It was tough, honestly, can't deny it, tough dealing with a young family and a global role, where I was on a plane most weeks somewhere in the world, everywhere from China, Japan, through to the west coast of the United States and everywhere in between. So that was a really tough moment.
Yeah. And what was your strategy to overcome the tough moments? For example, the professional challenges that you touched on. Did you have a strategy in mind that this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to get the team together, this is how I'm going to support my people? Or was it just something that came with the flow?
I mean, I think if you put your North Star as your people and your clients in business, in our world clients, but or customers, or work. If you put those as your North Star, and you really are an authentic leader that anchors your decision making on them, then everything else kind of comes easy, because you can rally your team around that, you can align your strategic direction around that, you can make your business decisions based on that. So I think you've got to kind of have that purpose in mind. I think any organisation these days that puts pure finance at the heart of their organisation is, kind of dead in the water, to be honest. So a North Star that puts people, clients, and then society at the heart of it, and then the rest follows in a very good way. And I think, that really, has led me through the last 3 years of COVID. We had a North Star which was, keep our business whole, keep it right for our people, make sure that we were holding and retaining, our people for as long as we possibly could, which actually was in the end quite easy, but we put that absolutely the North Star. It would have been so easy to do what quite a number of other organisations did, which was, either furlough people or actually, got rid of people. We never did that. We absolutely held on to absolutely everybody, and I think it's built such a sense of loyalty in our organisation. And it just, by having those North Stars, it just allows you to make the right business decisions as you go through it. And on a personal level, I kind of come back to it with the, not everything's easy. You're going to face challenges. Anybody faces challenges, whether or not you have children. That's one element of it. But there's other challenges that you come along the way. But actually, if you hold true to yourself, occasionally you've got to be kind to yourself. I mean, it's really easy to just keep trying to power through, but acknowledge there's moments in your career. It's a long journey. So acknowledge there's points where you just need to be kind to yourself and just acknowledge that it's okay to just slow down a little bit, to go faster, afterwards. It is a long journey. So I think that, that's the other thing I would say.
Yeah, no, I think you raised a really interesting point there as well about reflecting back to our own vision, our own goals, and also the company's purpose, which is always supposed to be at the heart of it. And just moving forward in terms of, us as students, how do you think we can make the most of our university days so that we can excel in our careers when we graduate?
First thing, enjoy it. Oh my goodness, just enjoy the time that you have. It's a very short, we're talking now, it's a very short period of time you have as a student. It's got to be the best time. I would also say, don't feel the need to rush into employment post, if you want that gap year, if you want to take that time out. It's a long old journey you're on once you graduate. So, make your choices and don't worry too much about, jumping into employment. But then, as a graduate, I do think follow your heart as well as your head. If you follow your heart, you'll be happy, you'll be passionate, that will come across. If you're just going through the motions of going to the job for the job's sake, that will come across too. So I think, having that desire and that passion. I always wanted to be in management. It's a bit of a wishy-washy phrase, I guess, but I knew that was always my personal passion.
Yeah.
I would have been an absolutely hopeless doctor or something of that nature, and that was never going to be my passion or my calling. I would say, follow your heart as much as your head. But as a graduate, I don't know. I think, honestly, right now is the time to enjoy what you do and the life that you've got right now, and live a bit in the moment. I think that was what, it's easy for me to say, I know, where I'm at in my life stage, but I do believe that if you live in the moment now, you'll reap the rewards later.
Yeah, the days are passing by so quickly now. Even as final year, I think a lot of us are final years in the room, and our classes are ending in 10 days, and then we're graduating in July.
Yeah.
And, you're right. I think it's really about enjoying the moments and giving ourselves that time to just step back and take it all in.
I think so.
Yeah. And, moving forward in terms of advice in general. So we're all 21-year-olds here. So what do you think, you would tell the 21-year-old Alison today? And what do you now know through your past experiences and your career journey that you really wish you had known during your time?
Well, I've probably said bits of it throughout this, but I would start by continuing to tell myself, believe in yourself, don't let society define you. If you have a dream and you believe that you want to go somewhere, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. My piano teacher, I was a fellow of the Royal College of Music. I was a pianist. I say was because I'm absolutely not now. But and she always used to say to me, "There's no such word in the English language as can't." When I was complaining about a particular piece of music. I do believe that, I believe that you shouldn't be. So I will continue to tell my 21-year-old self, there is no such word as can't. You believe in yourself, don't let society define you, have your dream and your goals and your ambitions and go for it. But I would also tell myself, which I didn't at the time, it is a long journey, there'll be bumps along the road. Dig deep at times where you need to dig deep. And be kind to yourself where you need to be kind to yourself, and don't pile the pressure on you, because plenty of other people will apply the pressure to you. So you just have your moments of being kind to yourself. I don't think I told my 21-year-old self that. I think I was all in this sort of accelerate, but there are definite times where you want to accelerate and you want to really push yourself. but also, you know, your career doesn't necessarily go in completely linear fashion. Your career will sort of ebb and flow, and some people will decide to go for one career and then they move into a different career. And, you know, I would say follow the heart as well as the head. And, you know, as long as you are continuing to feel passionate about what you do and enjoying. I enjoy getting up for work in the morning. Even on a Monday morning when it's raining, I can still honestly say I enjoy getting up for work in the morning. If you're not enjoying it, go and find something new, because honestly, life isn't that long. You only have one life, live it.
Thank you. I think that's a great note to just open it up to audience Q&A. I'm sure our audience has been, you know, really waiting to ask you lots of questions. So anyone who wants to start us off?
And please don't leave me sitting here.
Yes.
So my name's Deborah, and just like you, I've been thinking about like going into management, but not exactly sure which path to take. So like I've been looking at project management, product, HR, like all different types of management. How would you advise one to like kind of find the path to narrow it down to?
Well, I would say give it a go and get into something, because I don't think you'll actually know until you're in it to know which necessary. So if you can get a route like I got, which was more, you know, an opportunity to experience different sort of departments, go for that. Or you could come into consulting, because that does give you a wide breadth of businesses and industries to work in, and different like projects will give you different experiences. But I gave advice. She's actually in EY now. It was like a lady now. She's about 25. And I'd known Yasmin. She came and did work experience with us when she was 15, and so I sort of kept in touch with her. And she struggled after uni to get a job, and it was sort of in the COVID era when she was coming out of uni. And so I opened up a few doors for her to go into sales management. She enjoyed it, and she really wanted to come to EY. She really wanted to come to EY. She'd done work experience with us, and she wasn't successful on the graduate scheme. I said, don't despair. You can come in like in year, as a senior consultant, as we call it, which is sort of the next one along from graduate. But go and get some experience and go and try something, and then, you know, I'll connect you in. And I said, I'm not going to give you the job, and you've got to get it yourself, but, you know, I'll connect you in. And so that's what she did. And so she did a couple of years in sales, and then she came into EY, and she was successful and is now loving it. But I guess my point is, if I wouldn't worry, I'd just get some experience and I'd just get going. And then I think you'll find your pathway. And I do think it is important where you can to connect into people who can at least introduce you. Nobody will, well, they ought not to give you a job. We're very clear that we won't do that, but there's no harm in opening up and connecting. And I think that's where the relationships come in. I would also say just go and talk to people. I think if one thing I learned, which I was not very good at when I was sitting in your shoes, was actually just going, asking people for advice, you know, just going talking to people. It's amazing actually how many people will be more than happy to have a chat with you. And it just those connections, you don't know where it's going to come from. So the answer is talk to people, feel it out, but don't worry too much at your stage. Just get going, and you'll find your pathway.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience. I wanted to ask, who are some of your current mentors, and what's the best advice you've received?
Oh my goodness. So I have some mentors within my organisation. So there's so I talked about our global chairman. He's still a mentor of mine, and the global COO. I definitely lean on them for advice and, you know, coaching. I mean, but I think you can find support, and I will always ask. I will always ask peers. I will ask people who are more junior to me for advice. So they're not quite mentors in that regard, but definitely I will always be seeking people's views and opinions on, you know, different matters. Externally, I've got a very good mentor, a lady called Anne Cairns, who was just recently finished vice chair of MasterCard. I met, and she was at Sheffield with me. We met actually through the two of us were doing a talk to a group of students like yourself, and it was in COVID and we were virtual and we were online, and we just became very, very friendly. And she has been a fabulous mentor and coach. And she's also somebody, if I say, actually, Anne, in your little black book, you must know somebody who can go and talk to her about this. And she's very generous with her little black book and open up that. So the best bit of advice I've been given is that actually, it was when I was going for partner in Accenture. So I was in Accenture, we have, it was mostly male partners at the time. And I was a bit like, you know, I can do this, I'm going to go for this. And he said to me, Alison, he said, partners have got egos. So I was like, oh, tell me something I don't know. Like, of course they've got egos. And he said, if you ask them for advice, ask them for coaching, ask them for help, because you will immediately get them on your side. And it was the best bit of advice, and I still do that today. So whenever I'm talking to, you know, various senior folk in that firm, I'm like, give me some help. What's your advice on this? Give me some coaching on this. It's amazing how many people then will just be absolutely on your side. So that's a really good piece of advice I'll pass on.
And thank you for passing that on honestly, because I think it really shows the power of mentorship. And just wanted to add one point for anyone looking for a mentor next year. We actually have a mentorship scheme that we're running Women in Business, and applications will be opening up soon for that. Yes.
So I think this is also linked to your answer. You mentioned the importance of psychological safety, so I wanted to ask, how do you ensure like a psychological safe environment at EY? And then also if you can give like some insight about the diversity and inclusion policy.
Yeah. So psychological safety is something I came to when I was talking to some young women in our organisation about inclusion, and realising that actually unless we created an environment where, you know, we were clear on the behaviours that were expected by everybody, and that meant, you know, creating that environment of inclusion, that it was never going to be a psychologically safe environment for people to be themselves. So we have spent a lot of time in taking our partners in particular, because it starts with the partners, it starts with the top of, you know, the leadership. We've taken them through training around expectations of how to create that safe environment, and how to be an inclusive environment, and how to, you know, manage in that environment where they might feel that things aren't, how do they tackle issues that they're seeing. So we're giving them the tools to be able to tackle it, but also setting out a very clear tone from the top about the expectation of behaviours and inclusion in that. So a lot of it's been cultural as much as it has been anything particularly, you know, this policy or that policy, because policies only go so far. Actually, it's the culture that makes a difference. So we've done a lot of cultural sort of nuances to make sure that we are, and my tone from the top. Now, the other thing that we've done is instituted then a very a whistleblower hotline. So we have, and we've encouraged people to use that hotline where it's needed, and actually that's opened up a lot of people. When I say a lot of people, that sounds awful. More people using that, and we then have a very formal investigation process where we have got independent investigators who then oversee those investigations, and we do them very, very quickly, and make a conclusion on that basis. And fortunately, there's very few times where it gets to a point where somebody's asked to leave our firm, but there have been a couple of instances where it's been a no tolerance zone. So it is a no tolerance, and if somebody transgressed the line, then there definitely will be a, you know, asked to leave the firm. But you know, I'm pleased to say that's very rare, but we do fine people, or, you know, they will be given a warning. So, you know, we have different sorts of you know, thresholds by which, you know, you will make your sort of call on that. But actually, by doing all this, actually what's we've created is an environment where it's incredibly safe now, I think. Now, do I think we've got it perfect? No. But you can put some of the policy and the procedures in, but I think importantly is the cultural norms that make the difference.
Any more questions?
Hi, thank you for your time. I'm Rafaela, and it is quite interesting to see women in power. I love that. Interesting enough, I'm actually Irish, and my question kind of is, do you think we still have like a long way to go in terms of like inclusion and diversity? Because usually when I'm like researching partners or firms, I usually see that you know, they may always be white, and someone who's like a person of color, or you know, someone who's black, someone who's even neurodivergent would look at that and kind of feel discouraged, because I guess like a lot of firms' inclusion policies kind of only include women, rather than like women of color, women who are neurodivergent, people with disabilities. So my question is kind of like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think for many years it was, you know, there was a lot of focus on women, and I will say this, I don't think that has ended. I don't think that journey's ended for sure. However, you know, I do think certainly in our organisation we have really put big emphasis on ethnic minorities, and so I'm very proud that, you know, I think 20% of my leadership team is from an ethnic background, but not white, non-white. However, I will say that people from black background and black heritage, we've not done as well on. So it's easy to mask, I think, under the banner of ethnicity, you know, the fact that we have not done as well on the black, you know, progression. And that's been a very big target now. So again, I come back to the targets. I do think you've got to put the targets in place in order to allow us to make sure that we're putting the right. So now, where we went 2 years ago, we had no partners from a black background heritage. Today, I think we've got 15. So, okay, still not enough by any stretch of the imagination. But I am pleased that we've now, in 2 years, shifted the dial from 0. And so people can look up and start to see that there is progression, but more work to do for sure. In terms of neurodivergence, I'm really pleased actually. We've put the first neurodivergence centre of excellence in the whole country into play in Manchester. I opened it up last year, and we put different recruitment processes into place and different safe environments for those individuals who self-identify as neurodivergent and can therefore be in that safe environment. That has been the first of its kind in the UK, and I'm, you know, really proud of that, and we're really pushing the boundaries on neurodivergent now. But then you get back into that conversation on inclusion, because actually you can almost get down to the, you know, the individual at that point, you know, so the you know, the female of colour with who's got neurodivergent differences, as that you brought out as an example. That means that every single person needs to be able to feel that they can be their absolute best in our organisation and that they can thrive. And that's when I came to a world which said, actually, we need to create an inclusive environment as much as we're setting the target on individual groups. So it's both. And I think we've still got a way to go. I've no doubt about that. But I do believe with the right intent and the right framework and structures in an organisation, you can make a very big difference quite quickly. The problem is if you don't have leaders in an organisation who are willing to do that and are willing to push those boundaries and make tough decisions, you know. So, you know, one of my leaders in consulting, we were really struggling actually to get women and ethnic minority groups through in the partnership. And so the leader made an active choice to say that the partner list, the people coming through that, he took 50% off who were white men and said, okay, I'm going to have to take you now off the list because I need to create the space to bring in, you know, different diversity into the business, which is the right thing for the business, right thing for the individuals within our business. So that's a tough call, if I'm honest. That is a really tough call, but I think we're at the point now in society where we've got to make tougher decisions, and it's not good enough to just say, oh well, it just is because it is, and that's the way it always is. No, that's not good enough. You've got to take action as a leader if you're going to break through those barriers. And I believe that's where we are as a business. I believe I see many other businesses like that, but I also see businesses who are not brave enough to take those actions. So my encouragement would be to all of you, join a business that's got purpose and that's got action and that you can see them making a difference. It's not perfect, but you can see action.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing your experience. I really love the part when you tell us about the role model. It's important to have to follow and to say to yourself like she can and now I can do too. Do you have any role models in this current period of your journey? And if you do, what exactly you love about this woman?
Well, my biggest role model at the moment is Michelle Obama, I have to say. She is my absolute sort of girl crush. She's definitely my girl crush at the moment. And I think she's fabulous because she's willing to speak out, and she's willing to use her platform and the position that she's got to not, she could just take that privilege and just enjoy it, but actually she's been willing to push boundaries and make a difference. So I would say she is, somebody I really do look up to as a woman who, can make a difference, and it's something that I'm personally looking at now going, okay, I'm in a really, really privileged role, I'm in a privileged position. I acknowledge fully that my role and title and the company I work for gives me a platform, so what am I going to do to make a difference now beyond EY and beyond the boundaries of EY, which is why I've really pushed for some of these elements like the neurodiversity centre, where, so yeah, she's probably my biggest sort of focus at the moment is Michelle Obama, which is really what can you do to make a difference beyond, when you have a position in order to do so. And I think I feel really a big moral obligation to do that.
I think we have time for about 1 or 2 questions.
Perfect.
Hi, Alison. My name's Kate. You touched briefly on the fact that it's quite a challenging economic time at the moment. So how do you see what the next sort of 6 to 12 months might look like in the employment market? And how would you, if it is going to be a tricky employment market, which I think it is, how do you make sure that you're standing out amongst the crowd to sort of get past the initial hiring recruiter phase and interview time?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think it's going to be a rocky environment for another 6 months or so. I'm really hoping that this latest blip in the banking world does not, crash us again. I feel like we've been for the last 9-10 months in a real doldrum, and I feel like I've got this like ray of hope that we're coming out of it. My sort of planning cycle at the minute is we go into our new year in July, but I've been looking at September as the time when the economy starts to come back properly, and then probably January time next year when I'm hoping we'll see it lift off again. So touch wood that we don't, get thwarted by the banking situation, which at the moment I'm seeing regulators and other sort of swift action is being taken, which is good to keep the contagion low. So I would say that, this September is probably one of the trickiest sort of entries into the world of work. The following September, I think you will start to see it lift up for graduates again. So I think right now, if you're leaving this year, it's probably your toughest year. My encouragement would be, if you've not got employment right now, don't despair. Get yourself out there and go and see the world. Just go and see the world. Honestly, you're a long time in a career, so take the opportunity, take the time and go and do something with that time, and then come back into it and go for next September. What makes you stand, and it will come back. I mean, that is for sure. And organise it. I mean, we're one of the largest employers of graduates. I think we employ anywhere between 800 and 1,000 graduates a year in the UK and Ireland. So it's a big recruiter engine for graduates. And what makes you stand out? Well, as far as I understand the recruitment process, the first steps are to get through what is an online sort of set of tests and assessments. My working assumption is that most of you will get through those because you've got your education, your degree, your training on it. My encouragement would be, if you have got some requirements through being neurodivergent, highlight that, say that, because you will be given more time and you will be given more support around that, and we've made that very clear in our recruitment processes. So if that is something that you feel you need support on, any of you, then please make sure that you tell any employer, potential employer, as you go through the system, because it's important that you're given the extra space and time to do those online tests. But then, you know, it's really the attributes that I was saying before. I think, you know, the notion of teamwork, confident, when I say confident, not being afraid to come up with ideas, bold ideas, you know, demonstrating that you can work with others and the relationships that you can build. It's subjective to an extent, but it is really important that we're looking for the all-rounded individual, and the tests are the first, you know, the online tests are the first hurdle for sure, but actually they're really just a gateway into actually demonstrating to us who you really are. And, you know, is it Kate? Did you say Kate? Yeah, who is Kate? You know, and bring that authenticity. Be authentic, be passionate, you know, be confident, because you will shine through. And what we're looking for is the individual. We're not looking for a cookie cutter person. There is no one shape or size that fits. It's, you know, it's about that ability to be you, and that's what we're looking for.
I think we have time for one final question.
So you mentioned in an interview that you talked about how AI has transformed your industry, and I just wanted to ask, how is EY, and specifically you, like, how are you adapting to like ChatGPT?
Well, I did tell Wired, if you ever read the Wired article interview, I did say that my nephew is the same age as you all, and he introduced me to ChatGPT at Christmas. He was down. I was like, oh my God, look at this! Look at all the things you can do with this particular tool. It's phenomenal. I was asking it all sorts of questions, and you know, even wrote a letter to the council for me in my building project. So I was very happy with ChatGPT. What's fascinated me, if I'm honest, is just how quickly that's gone from being just an initial sort of fun thing to something that actually is becoming quite pervasive. And then Microsoft last week announced their Copilot. Is it Copilot? I was like, wow, that is just absolutely, you know, phenomenal, the rate this is going. This week I was with the head of DeepMind, who is now part of Google but still a separate entity, Dimitris, who sort of built DeepMind, phenomenal individual. And he shared with me sort of where the future of AI is going in generative AI, and I was blown away. And I don't know whether to be excited or scared, or and I'm probably a bit of both, if I'm honest. It will transform many businesses, including my own. I'm very focused on advising boards of directors and chief executives about the need to create standards, ethnical standards in AI, because the bias that could come through that very easily. I think AI is getting ahead of us now. And so there's a need for humans to catch up, and I think it's got to be designed with humans in mind, not with technology in mind, and that's one of the biggest focuses I've got in talking to clients and other chief executives, etc., is how do you make sure that AI does not build in further bias into our society, you know, and, you know, so our business will be transformed by it, no doubt about that. Every business will be transformed by it, but then equally there is no substitute for creativity, innovation, communication, relationship building, and those skills, which is what I've been talking about as the standout skills, are going to be the ones that really create, that humans need to do. And no AI, robot, anything of that nature can do that in the way that humans can do it. So I think alongside the technical skills that we bring, and there'll always be a need for that, but AI will transform how we do it. We've got to bring all the attributes that humans bring, and those are going to become increasingly important in the future.
Thank you for all your questions. I think that's all the time we have. But thank you so much, Alison, for joining us tonight. Your insights, I'm sure, have truly empowered our audience today. And thank you to our audience for taking out the time on a Monday evening to come join us. We really appreciate it, and hope you all really had and made the most of this opportunity. Have a great rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
We wholeheartedly believe empowered women empower women. This is King's College London's Women in Business Society.